Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch, where we're going to look at all things Standard, Modern, Legacy, a little bit of Pauper, some other notable cards as well, as we always do. The big story, though, again this week is the Modern market. It continues to be very volatile. And there's a number of reasons for that. Obviously, this is Masters 25 release weekend. That's part of it. But maybe more importantly right now, just the fact the meta is starting to form itself after the changes we saw a number of weeks ago with the unbanning of Jace and Bloodbraid Elf. So as that meta continues to solidify, you're going to see a lot of changes in the market, and that's what's going on right now. Quickly, before we get into it, though, just a really fast reminder. If you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here at the channel, one of which is our Patreon page. You'll also find links to Amazon products down below as well. If you make any purchases on Amazon, no matter what it is, actually, once you go through that first link, we'll get a small percentage for the channel. And then finally, Flipside Gaming, still offering a promo code for our viewers, another way to hopefully save some money as well as support what we do here. And thank you not only to the people that look at those links, but to all our viewers. You all make this channel what it is, so thank you. With that being said, let's get into it. We'll begin with the top 5 Standard cards that have lost value this week. Now, Standard is starting to get a little bit stagnant. It's going to be that way over the next few weeks due to the fact that Dominaria is approaching. A lot of people are going to hang on to their wallets so they see what's going on with that new meta. Some will wait even to the Pro Tour. So let's see what's going on here with number 5. Hezret the Fervent, down 34 cents to $18. This one's kind of interesting because this has been a huge card in the previous meta, of course. Mono red aggro, vehicles, even big red decks, a number of decks, as a matter of fact. However, this is crossing over nicely more and more into Modern as well. Mardu Pyromancer, you'll see this in Hollow 1 decks. So the card's popular right now. It's going down, though, because April 6th, the Challenger decks come out. And this will be a one-of in the mono red deck. So if you buy that one off the shelf, you're going to get a copy of Hezret. So the market is starting to brace a little bit for the extra quantities coming into the environment. Number 4, Angel of Invention, down 38 cents to $5.50. So this is a key part of the gift decks, which of course hasn't been one of the bigger decks necessarily in the previous meta. But there's still a lot of players that play these at Friday Night Magic or a lot of tournaments actually. And once in a while they can still put up a good result. But again, all things considered, this was a lower end deck when it comes to competitiveness this past time, as well as the fact that everything's about to change again with Dominaria entering the environment. This one is ticking down pretty heavily. Number 3 is Zora the Lawbringer, down 40 cents to $1.99. That's quite a percentage drop, actually. Just hasn't seen a whole lot of Standard play since its release. A little bit of Commander play maybe at the beginning, which held the price point stable for a short period of time. But for the most part now, I mean, sometimes you see this as a one-of out of the board of a control deck in Standard for a mirror matchup, but that's about it. Number 2, Metallic Mimic, down 45 cents to $7.42. So this card dropping pretty heavily now as a lot of the high expectations of Tribal from Rivals of Ixalan just didn't really pan out. The Vampire Tribal deck, which runs this, didn't really get there. And I have seen this show up in some Marionette decks, but they're also kind of falling out of the meta a little bit too. So this card just doesn't currently have a home. I mean, it's a good card. Could that change over time? Maybe, but it feels like this past block was its best chance to really shine. So it could be downhill from here. Number 1, Kumina, Tyrant of Araska, down 92 cents to $11.48. Speaking of downhill, this card continues its downward spiral. And the only reason this isn't below $10 yet is because of the Commander crowd pushing this a little bit, due to the fact that a lot of people are using this as their Commander and buying into the Merfolk decks, which are actually pretty sweet. Now, aside from that, does the C Standard play? A little bit. I mean, Merfolk decks haven't completely disappeared out of the format, but they just never really grabbed a hold of the meta, as some people hoped or expected that they would. I do see this sometimes as a one-of in the modern versions, but again, that's not enough play to justify this kind of price point. This will continue to go down. All right, let's look at the cards that have gained value this week. You're going to see a lot of crossover cards here, cards that are good in other formats. Number 5, Ronas the Indomitable, up 39 cents to $8.96. This card has been more popular recently in Standard and some of the Monsters decks. However, it's also a card that sees play in Modern and counters Company decks, for example. So that crossover is pretty nice, but I do think Standard is probably driving this one a little more right now. Number 4, Scavenger Grounds, up 49 cents to $2.95. Now, this card is all over the place in Standard. I don't think that's going to change as Dominaria comes in or anything like that. However, this card is starting to cross over into Modern as well. I've seen this in some Eldrazi builds, for example. Number 3, Carnage Tyrant, up 55 cents to $21.84. Another card that's seen a push recently in Standard due to some success of the Monsters decks. However, another one that also crosses over into Modern. Sometimes you'll find this in a board of some Titan Shift builds. Number 2, Dire Fleet Daredevil, up 99 cents to $4.99. Now, this card, of course, had a very successful Standard, and again, I don't really see that changing much as Dominaria comes into play. Fantastic in the mono red aggro, as well as even some of the control builds will run this, vehicles, you name it, this card probably has shown up if the deck has red in it. But aside from that, yes, this does cross over into a very popular deck sometimes in Modern, that's the Humans deck. This has even seen a little bit of legacy play here and there, so this is definitely one to watch in the future. Number 1, Paradox Engine, up $1.06 to $11.89. Not a huge increase here necessarily, considering this is our number 1 card for Standard, but this isn't because of Standard play. This is because of Commander play. This is a fantastic Commander card for spiky decks especially, so a lot of players interested in picking this up. And when the Standard market gets a little more stagnant, you will definitely see the impact of the Commander players on these top 5s. All right, let's move on to the top 5 Modern cards that have lost value this week. Now, we're actually still going to look at the top 10 that gained value, but I only did 5 for lost value this week because things are starting to settle down. Now, I don't know, good news or bad news the way you look at it. The fact that the cards losing value are starting to come down a little bit could be an early indication that things are starting to settle, but also it means that more cards are going up in value than are going down in value. That's not necessarily a good thing either, so let's get into it. Number 5 is Steam Vents, down $3.46 this week to $21.80 from Guild Pack. And this had a huge spike last week. This is the snapback we were anticipating. No big surprise here, but still sees a lot of play in a number of important mana bases, especially like Jeskai Control right now. Number 4, Jace the Mind Sculptor, down $3.85 to $133.95. This is the World Wake version, which was the most expensive. So all the Jaces are starting to trend down a little bit. That's a good thing. Couple of reasons for that. The hype is starting to die down and people are starting to figure out where Jace is actually good, what decks you want to play the card in. So things are starting to just stabilize a little bit. So this card will continue to trickle down. Another thing that definitely doesn't hurt is the release of Masters 25. As people open packs this weekend, more of these copies will enter the marketplace, even though it isn't World Wake, granted, but players that are on a budget especially won't necessarily care. Number 3, Gemstone Caverns, down $3.96 to $30. Had a huge week last week. I believe this was our number 1 card, actually. Snaps back a little bit this week, but it is seeing a lot of play in a number of different decks at this point. It does feel like it's taking hold. As I mentioned last week, a lot of players were speccing on this card because it does feel like you can push your Jace out a little bit early, sometimes especially in a mirror, that could be good. Or you could push your pressure out a little bit faster, your Blood Braids or your Clicks or something like that, to put pressure on an opponent's Jace. So this card is the real deal, I think, going forward. And it looks good, especially in the Through the Breach decks right now. The Grizzlebrand Through the Breach builds, they are running this to great success. But again, a lot of decks are seeing this card show up. Number 2, Through the Breach, down $5.54 this week to $60.24. This had a huge spike when we saw that it was not going to be part of Masters 25. A lot of people really expected it to be there, myself included. It didn't happen, it spiked, and now it starts to come back down a little bit off of that spike. But it will come down more. However, again, like I mentioned, the Through the Breach deck is actually pretty decent right now, it looks like, in this new meta, at least early on. So Through the Breach, Grizzlebrand, something to watch for. And number 1 is Karn Liberated. 2 versions here. Modern Masters 2015 down $239 to $87, with New Phyrexia going down $603 to $86.91. Another card that had a big couple weeks when we found out it wasn't going to be in Masters 25. So you are seeing a little bit of kickback off those spikes now. However, there is another reason this is getting a little softer. So it does have to do with the Dominaria leak from a little while ago from Wizards. So if you're trying to avoid that leak, I'll let you move on to the next section. And now that those folks have moved on, for everybody else, basically, there is a card that's coming out. It's a 2 casting cost artifact. I mentioned in last week's video too, Dampening Sphere. And it really hoses Tron pretty hard. So no doubt that card is immediately going to see sideboard play in the format to deal with these decks. And when you're thinking about building a Tron deck right now and picking up cards that cost $85, $90, you may want to hold off a little bit. I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. Now, does that mean you should throw your Tron deck in the trash? No, of course not. I don't know if 1 card and some sideboards is enough to really derail such a powerful and popular deck at this point, but it can't help it, right? So I think a lot of people are going to hold off buying into it to see what happens when the card's released. All right, let's move on to the top 10 Modern cards that have gained value this week. Coming in number 10 is Horizon Canopy from Future Sight, up $362 to $61. Wow, this sale price didn't last very long, did it? Is this card already starting to go up again? Now, you can find a cheaper version, obviously, if you want to go with the Iconic Masters one. This was reprinted there at Rare. But a lot of people still like the Future Sight version with the unique border and different card art. So, yeah, that's part of it. Not to mention this is a little scarcer, too, because Future Sight didn't have the highest print run when you compare it to other modern era Magic sets. So you have all that going for it. But most importantly, the reason this is going up this week is because of its play in Humans decks as well as Boggles decks. Celestia Boggles decks are starting to look kind of good in this new meta. Those decks are starting to see kind of a surge right now. So this card, of course, he's playing a lot of other places beyond that, but it's really those two decks that are pushing it this week. Number 9 is Samaru, Hound of Khanda, up 565 to 963. So again, if you're trying to avoid those Dominaria leaks that Wizards put out, I will let you move on to the next card. All right, for the rest of us. This is going up because of what we saw in that leak, basically. All the legends, legendary matter stuff, and this is a 1-drop legend that will turn on your legendary sorceries. Of course, those are very powerful sorceries that you can only cast if you have a legendary creature or a legendary planeswalker in play. This is a great way to enable those. I think most of the excitement here is coming from Commander players, but it could be some Modern brewers looking at some things too. Number 8, Gaddock T, got 570 to 46.49. Another card that's been hot over the last few weeks. Again, ever since the announcement that Jace was coming to the format, people have been thinking about this card. But practically, there are a couple decks that seem to be having at least a little bit of success out of the sideboard with it against Jace. Those are Humans decks and, again, the Boggles decks. And again, two popular decks. Not all versions are running these yet, but I have seen people trying it out. And it's a matter of time to find out now if it's good enough and if it will take hold. Number 7, Blackleaf Cliffs, up 571 to 46.80. This card was huge coming out of the Pro Tour, and then it snapped back a little bit, and now it's trying to find its fair price point. Part of the reason it's going up as aggressively as it is this week, though, is because Jund decks are becoming more popular thanks to Bloodbraid Elf. So a lot of folks thinking about adding this to their mana base for Junds are picking it up this week, but don't forget, this is still a part of huge Modern decks aside from Jund. I mean, Dredge, Mardu Pyromancer, even Hollow One, just to name a few. So this is a very popular card for Modern mana bases. Number 6, Liliana of the Veil. Innistrad version, up 414 this week to 124.99. Modern Masters 2017, up 618 to 125.62. Will this card ever stabilize? I think it goes up for maybe another week, maybe 2. Then it will finally stabilize. It's starting to get to the point where I just think it's getting out of range, where people just don't want to spend this on a Modern card. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. This card does see legacy play as well, but it's all about Modern this week. The Jund decks, of course, making a comeback. The band's getting back together. Liliana being the lead singer, like I said last week. She's a big part of that, but she sees play in so many other places too. Variants of the Shadow deck will run this card, which is, of course, another very popular archetype out there in Modern. You'll also see her in some control builds. She's just all over the place right now. Number 5, Daybreak Coronet, Modern Masters 2015, up 832 to 1710. Future Sight, up 846 to 1995. This card has been pretty low-key for a while, really ever since it got reprinted in Modern Masters 2015. Partially because the Boggles decks weren't doing as well in the meta. Well, guess what? The times are changing again. Boggles making a comeback, it looks like, and this card right along with it. Number 4, Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, up 858 to 23.95. Couple things going on with this card. First off, it is seeing legitimate Modern play in Tron builds. Some variants will run it more often than others. You'll find this a lot of times in the green Tron, but regardless, it is truly seeing Modern play. The other thing going on, and maybe the reason it got such a push this week, was the fact that Saffron Olive on MTG Goldfish did 2 different deck techs this week that had this card in it. And a lot of times his deck techs get a lot of attention and do cause cards to move in the market. So, especially being in 2 decks, I do think that's part of the push this week for the card. Number 3, Trinisphere from Darksteel, up 1270 this week to 36.99. And this card has been hot recently ever since Bloodbraid Elf has been unbanned in the format due to a lot of players trying to figure out if this card is really good sideboard tech against that card. And traditionally this has been a legacy and vintage deck. I wouldn't say that has officially changed yet, But I do see some modern decks running this out of the board, like Land Destruction, for example. And if it catches on, this card could get hotter. If it doesn't, it will go back down. Number 2, Cavern of Souls. 2 versions here. Avacyn Restored up $12.67 to $85. Modern Masters 2017 up $15.25 to $89.99. This card has been incredibly hot recently. It's not going to change. He's playing numerous decks in numerous formats. The big driver right now, though, continues to be the Humans deck and the Eldrazi decks. I do think this card could go up at least a little more before it snaps back. Number 1, the bass player of the Jund Band is back again, Dark Confidant. 3 versions. Modern Masters 2015 up $8.62 to $94.92. Ravnica, City of Guilds up $13.10 to $99.35. Modern Masters up $16.38 to $93.50. This card is scorching hot right now. You see this in Jund decks. You're going to see this in Humans decks. So many others too. But really, those 2 decks are super pushing this card right now. So yeah, eventually I would expect a little bit of a snapback. But it is so hot right now. It could go up a little more before that happens. All right, let's move on to a calmer format, Legacy. The top 5 cards that have lost value this week. Coming in number 5, Gwendolyn de Corsai, down $16.39 to $139.95. This card was the target of a buyout recently, but really all of these Gold Legends cards that are on the reserve list, I think they were undervalued for a long time, so perhaps this card is finally trying to find its proper price point. Number 4, Sylvan Library, down $19.12 to $42.67. This is not a reserve list card. There's been multiple printings of this if you want to get a cheaper version. This feels like to me it was part of that buyout from a few weeks back where someone was buying up a lot of the non-reserve list older cards, especially from Legends. And I don't know if that ended well for those folks. This might be them trying to lower the price point to get rid of some of those cards now, as they're probably reaching the point where they may have to pay interest if they bought them on credit. So I think you're going to see a number of these cards that perhaps were mini buyouts or full-on buyouts start to go down pretty heavily over the next few weeks. This is probably one of them. Number 3, Ali from Cairo, down $24.01 to $179.99. This card had a huge spike a couple weeks ago. It's been snapping back last 2 weeks. Number 2, Diamond Valley, down $42.83 to $333.55. Up 1 week, down 1 week, up 1 week, down 1 week. This card can't seem to find a stable price point. Number 1, City of Brass from Arabian Nights, down $51.25 to $259.25. Again, another card that's not reserve list and has been reprinted many times. However, this one's a little bit different. This is popular among 93-94 players. Not to mention the fact that collectors of Arabian Nights, and there's quite a few of them out there, are always happy to grab a copy of this card in good condition. All right, let's move on to the top 5 legacy cards that have gained value this week. Coming in number 5 is one of the dual lands. Whenever you see dual lands on here, you know things are getting stable. This is from Unlimited Underground Sea, up $48.12 to $568.87. Number 4, Jazam Jin's back on our list, up $50 to $850. This card sat around $800 for a few weeks now, has a tick up this week. Number 3, Taiga from Unlimited, up $83.56 to $292.60. Number 2, Mishra's Factory. This is the Antiquities Winter variant, up $124.72 to $327.50. This card was bought out last winter, and now that spring's coming, it's getting bought out again. This is definitely market manipulation on this one. Number 1, Chains of Mephistopheles, up $364.34 to $850. Huge increase for the card this week. Again, looks like maybe at least a mini buyout. All right, with that out of the way, let's look at some notable cards. We're going to start off with a few pauper cards. First one, Serene Heart. It's up 24 cents to 63 cents. Pretty nice percentage increase for this card. Comes out of the sideboards of a number of decks, actually. Sometimes Tron, Stompy, among others. Next is Snow Covered Island, the original one from Ice Age, up 43 cents to 250. Of course, Skred is pauper legal, and this plays with that card in the format. A lot of times in Delver decks, but some others as well. Spell Stutter Sprite. 3 versions here. Lore went up 28 cents to $2. Modern Masters up 31 cents to $1.98. And the Friday Night Magic promo up 93 cents to $16.95. Another card that's great in those pauper decks, among other control builds that are out there, has a pretty nice week for pauper. Bayou from Revised this time, up 12.04 to 241.33. I want to point this one out because a lot of times you're used to seeing the unlimited dual lands just go up, go up, go up over time. The revised ones do too, as you can tell by the price point here. but sometimes they lag behind the unlimited a little bit and then all of a sudden boost to at least get within a certain range. And I think you're going to start seeing more of that now that the unlimited dual lands are getting so expensive again. So this is just an indicator maybe of more things to come that you might want to watch for. Next is Back to Basics. This one's interesting. Up 1874 to 7109. This is an old card from Urza's Saga, and as a matter of fact, this has never seen a reprint. But this is a good legacy card. I mean, he's playing a number of different decks, more so recently, and I think that's why you're seeing a price spike here. Miracles decks especially will run this. Mishra's Factory. This is the spring variant from Antiquities, up 2310 to 5497. Well, we saw the winter variant have a real nice week. This could be the beginning of another buyout on this one as well. So this is one to watch, especially as we approach the spring season. Underworld Dreams from Legends, up 3104 to 6999. This one's kind of interesting. I don't think this is one of those buyout cards necessarily, like we've been seeing. This is a card that's not on the reserve list, that has been reprinted. If you want cheaper copies, it kind of fits that mold. But at the same time, this is a card that a lot of players that play during that time definitely have an affinity towards. And it is good in 93-94 format as well. So I do think there could be legitimate interest in this card that could, at least in part, be the reason it's going up in value right now. Now, before we go on to the next card, just a word of warning. The following card does tie into the Dominaria leak. If you're trying to avoid it, well, this will be the end of the road for you. So, hey, thanks for watching. If not, here we go. Maybe no surprise if you've been following along, but Captain Sisay from the Vault Legends up 258 to 3629, with Invasion going up 1223 to 3850. Of course, whenever there's a shakeup with Legends, Legendary, this card reaps the benefit. And that Dominaria League definitely showed us that a main component of that set coming up is going to be legendary creatures, planeswalkers, other spells like enchantments, artifacts, and the new legendary sorceries. So with all of these new legendary cards about to enter a number of formats, of course, people are thinking about this card. Maybe for commander purposes, but again, maybe some brewers are thinking about other formats too. With that being said, that is the Market Watch for this week. We have a lot of stuff coming up on the channel though this week, so stay tuned. On Wednesday, we are going to be seeing more Dominaria cards. So we'll be talking about those, no doubt, and if there are any more on other days, we will be talking about them then too. Beyond that, I also will be opening some Masters 25, so hopefully you won't have to when you see how badly I get hosed. Now, hopefully, maybe I won't get hosed, but let's face it, I'm probably going to get hosed. So enjoy that when I do post it later in the week. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.